Hello, Lance. How are you?
Hi, Andrew. I'm good. How are you today?
Welcome to the Brass Junkies.
Thank you.
I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and today I am joined by my lovely co-host, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Guess what today is?
Today is
As we sit here recording this intro, it is my birthday.
Oh my gravy! Happy birthday!
Hey, thanks, man.
I got you what I got you last year. I hope you like it.
I
regifted it.
I received various insulting texts from some of our mutual friends. So,
well, that's what it's all about.
Yes.
How old are you? How old of a person are you now?
I am 46. I don't look a day over 45. I'm told.
Yeah. By whom?
By well, it's all the good clean living that I used to do on the road. So
Yeah,
I was always like, where's Hitz? He's probably in the hotel gym. Yeah,
Healthy hits. That's what they call them.
Healthy hits. Hashtag healthy hits. So we interviewed Rex Richardson for the for the third time.
That's right, Cass. Because you Cass lost that first one.
We talk about this in the interview. You'll enjoy that part. I'm guessing. We the first time we interviewed him, nobody heard it. So this is his second appearance on the Brass Junkies, which, yeah, it was fun. He's awesome. I love him. He's so great. He's so great.
Yeah.
We've you know what else is great?
Macaroni salad.
Macaroni salad, and also Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Very cool.
Look at you. You're real subtle. I like your shirt, man. That's and your water bottle and your coffee mug, all from our brand new Pedal Note Media store, which we are happy to report that each month we're going to be choosing a different charity to send all of our profits to. Like every single, it's all print on demand stuff, so there's a pretty small margin on it, but every penny that is on top of whatever it costs them to make it on the other end is going to go through September 1st to Cancer Blows. So if you want a spit towel that is actually a Target, which is pretty cool, like your official Brass Junkies spit rag, or any of the bling that Lance is, I was going to say modeling, but that's kind of a liberal use of that term. Also wanted to mention the Brass Junkies Summer Workshop from last year is available in our archives. Again, if you go to brassjunkies.academy. Also, if you happen to have been one of the over 200 people that attended that event last summer, you have an email waiting for you with the email that you used to register, which we are offering free access to that through September 1st. And it also comes with a free Inside the Practice Room according to your instrument. And one of those sessions is actually Rex Richardson. So if you're a trumpet player, you get a free hour with Rex doing a deep dive on practicing, which is what we talked about a lot here, as you're about to hear. It's like, some really good stuff. So, Lance, is there anything that I'm forgetting?
Happy birthday, Andrew.
Hey,
I mean that from the bottom of my haunches.
I can tell. All right. And without further ado, let us get to our interview with trumpet superstar Rex Richardson.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more content by the Brass Junkies, just click on the like and subscribe button. You'll have an opportunity to see some of the greatest brass players in the world, and Andrew and me.
And today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by the Vice Mayor of Long Beach, California. His name is Rex Richardson. Rex, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Great to be back with you guys. It's been a long time.
How's the weather in Long Beach?
Well, my career has changed quite a bit since I've gotten into politics.
For anyone who's confused, which is
laterally
everyone,
or
There is the vice mayor of Long Beach's name is also Rex Richardson. There's also a real estate agent whose name's Rex Richardson, and so yeah, there's a lot of Rex Richardsons out there. And tell them about the Twitter exchange that you had with the vice mayor of Long Beach, because this is funny.
Yes. Years ago, we discovered each other on Twitter, follow each other, and I sent him a note. I said, "You realize if your career explodes and become president someday, you're going to completely ruin my life." And he laughed. He didn't say anything, which is I think was his way of saying, I mean, he's saying nothing besides an LOL or something. That he's indicating that could be his ambition. So I've been living in fear ever since. There's exchange,
There's probably some freelance music producer who used to be kind of a big deal, whose name is Barack Obama, and he hasn't gotten a gig in like 11 years. Yeah, no, longer than that. 15 years. Yeah, he just dropped off the map because nobody can find him anymore.
Well, I did ask a question. He hosts this jazz festival, Long Beach. I said, man, it would be really killing if you hired me. That would make people laugh and confuse them, and we can be on stage together. But he didn't respond to that. So
I think you're underselling yourself. I think you will do way more damage to his career than he would do to yours.
I think.
Well,
don't sell yourself short, Rex.
That's the first hopeful thing I've heard in a long time. Thank you. I appreciate that, Lance.
His Gary Hart moment is going to be when the internet realizes that there's also someone named Rex Richardson who, does this and who might possibly be related to him. Yeah, that's going to be that'll be the end. He's going to get primaried as vice mayor. Yeah, this is the end of the road. For anyone who doesn't know Rex, he's one of the best trumpet players in the world.
Just ask him.
Yeah, but it's true in this instance.
It is. I know that's the crappy part. It's just like,
and this is actually
got the goods.
Here's a little. That doesn't prevent us from making fun of him because he's a good friend of ours and
requires it.
You never let the truth get in the way of a good joke. But this is actually Rex's third time on the podcast, and that is because what was he like, TBJ6 or something like
that? Really early.
It was really early, single digits. And we did not have a good connection with Rex, at all. And we
recorded
personally,
intellectually.
It just wasn't clicking.
It just didn't feel right. It wasn't funny at all.
Episode 8.
And so we recorded the whole episode, and then I went and listened to it, and the connection was so bad that I was like, "Hey Rex, I would like to remind you that we're good friends." And how would you like to be interviewed for the Brass Junkies again? And I wish I could say that he said anything other than "I'll do anything for you cats," I believe was the exact quote. And so we're like, okay, that was really good. So let's try and recreate that exactly. And then we just did it again.
And we did it, right? You transcribed it and we read.
We just read it.
But it was really organic, and it felt awesome that time.
It smelled organic.
And today we are joined by the vice mayor of Long Beach.
He was a councilman at that point, District 9.
I'm gonna have to send him the link to this. He's gonna be amused, I think, when
I think you're right.
This is posted out.
So your episode, we're recording this on the 12th of June. The episode aired 6 years and 3 days ago. Isn't that weird?
Hard to believe that it's been 6 years since you were on the podcast.
Hard to believe we're all still alive.
Right?
Yeah.
Are we? You're not talking spiritually, obviously. Yeah, thank you. Wait, are you guys familiar with the Twitter account Nihilist Arby's?
Maybe you told me about it.
Oh, this is one of the reasons why the internet was invented. This is an account that's all every tweet. First of all, the avatar is just a beef and cheddar sandwich, and then every single tweet is something nihilist, like Happy Mother's Day, although, it doesn't matter because she, just like the rest of us, will eventually be surrounded by complete and utter darkness, just like we were before we existed. Eat Arby's. At the end of every tweet, it says either eat Arby's or enjoy Arby's. And it's It's hilarious. It's really good stuff. It's like super dark and it's funny, and everyone should check out that account. It doesn't tweet that often either, so it's like a nice surprise when they surface. So
Yeah, it takes time to think of stuff like that. I think you got to process and edit. I mean, I can imagine that just doesn't roll off the tongue necessarily.
I dig that you have your sisters on the wall in their graduation gowns behind you. That's very sweet of you to be so devoted to your siblings, Rex.
Yes. Well, I should explain. I'm at my parents' house. They're headed to Europe in a couple days, and I'm up here helping them get prepared. I'm going to take them to the airport and all that stuff on Monday. So yes, that's why there are youthful photos of my sisters behind me.
Notable that I don't. Where's the picture of you?
Well, I was one of the less loved members of the family.
Now, fast forward. Who's the one taking them to the airport? Right.
Right. Well, I'm still trying to win their love.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's what it is. I think.
So they have the frame.
It's in a drawer here somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find it later.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of tear. Yeah. So that was actually very entertaining because Rex didn't realize that we shot video now because it was 6 years and 3 days ago that he last had to deal with this.
Right. And it was completely audio, and I could look however I wanted to.
Well, you could look like you do now.
That's true. And so we had to pause and give him an hour to look like this.
Yeah, what do y'all think?
I don't think you could have done any better.
He went and got a lamp, and he put the lamp down just off the camera, and it looked exactly the same, which was hilarious.
I know. I was the more you can see me, probably the worse the effect. So that was probably not a great call either. But
I think all of us were better looking 6 years ago.
We're all still learning the technology. It's just a trial and error.
My son is just old enough. He's now 7. That the photos of him when he were really young with me, like I look significantly younger, which it's like I've just entered that because when he's 3, you look a little bit younger, but yeah, I was in my 30s for those early ones, and now I'm not in my 30s.
I was in my 40s, and now I'm not in my 40s.
Mm-hmm.
How old are you, Rex? I always forget that you're
close to my age, I think.
I don't look a day under 75, do I?
No.
Over 75, brother. I'm 52.
Oh yeah, so I'm a little older than you.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm the young guy here. I'm 45.
Riveting podcast information.
It really is.
This is why everyone's tuned out by now, man. We've lost the audience.
We may very well edit that part out.
We usually lose them in the intro.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell the vice mayor of Long Beach to just check in around the 14th minute. Yeah, after our intro. So Rex, you got a new book that you are working on that might even be out by the time this airs. Tell us about this book, because it's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, well, it's called 100 Days of Trumpet Practice with Rex Richardson, and
who's it by?
The vice mayor of Long Beach, of course.
Okay, good.
It started with the trend, I guess you could call it, last year, early in the pandemic, where people started using the 100 Days of Practice hashtag. And of course, a lot of folks were just filming themselves doing some practice, a little bit of commentary, and it was nice. It was a nice way for people to still connect and share ideas about practicing. So I thought this would be cool for me to be involved in. Excuse me. I didn't think my voice could get even worse, did you? But it can. Anyway, so I started creating some of these videos, and then I started digging in a little more deeply and making longer videos that were a little more focused on pedagogy. And now I'd already been in communication with Editions BIM, the Swiss publisher, because the previous February of 2020, I did the Swiss premiere of Tony Ploeg's concerto for brass band, trumpet and brass band, which he'd been written for me in 2016. So through that process, because they'd published his concerto, I got to know the folks. It's a family-run business, of course. And then I had the chance to sit down with Jeremy Mathez, who had taken over last year, and we talked about maybe doing a project together. And a few months into the pandemic, like late in the summer, he suggested, hey, why don't you do a book version of the 100 Days of Practice video series you've been creating? So that's what got the idea rolling. And so what it's about really is it's an attempt to help people design their own practice routine for the best benefits. I found that more than anything, I find that this seems to be lacking with a lot of young players, where they'll work hard but not always practice very smart. You know what I mean? And so trying to figure out how can you be more efficient and more effective in the long run. And more than anything, so it's initially a lot of close prescription of what to practice, and I start with a single exercise, and then by day 10, it's essentially a routine. And the book is also punctuated by short essays covering different topics, from performance anxiety to how to breathe. You know, as you know, you guys are low brass players, so you laugh at trumpet players when it comes to breathing, but we do have to breathe a little bit at least. And so
that's not the only reason we laugh at you, right?
One of many, yeah.
Doesn't crack the top 10, Rex.
Yeah,
but...
right, of course. But that's the general idea. So my hope is that when people go through this book, by the time they're finished with it, they're going to have a really good idea of how to design their own practice moving forward. And they can always kind of go through the book again, you know, or any of the parts that were especially useful for them. But really, it's about creating a certain degree of independence and knowing your own needs as a player to design your most efficient and effective way of practicing.
So when you went through the process, what were the big takeaways on day 101? Like when you looked back over the distance you traveled, what conclusions had you come to?
Well, one of them was that there's no way it can be perfect, you know. So I'm looking at things like, I could do this a little differently, but I think after that I realized that's part of the process too. You know, the fact that how we practice is always going to evolve, and I'm not going to be able to include every possible set of skill or type of repertoire that people might want to practice. But starting with this idea of, you know, there are a few of my exercises that I include, and there are also some others from commonly used books for us, between the Arbins and the Shirley and the Biche and the Bordoni, Poiret, which is a transposition version of those classic etudes. And, you know, what I did is I separated the skills into 10 categories, from sound production to finger technique and articulation. Of course, there's subcategories of articulation and flexibility as well. And so I'm looking at saying, you know, I can't cover absolutely everything here in the way that's going to work for everyone. But I came away with the fact that there are certain basic principles, I think, that apply to all of us in terms of understanding what the goals are, first of all, knowing exactly what it is you're trying to achieve. And then, and a lot of that can be fairly, I mean, it can evolve, but it doesn't necessarily evolve very quickly, right? We start off maybe wanting to generally try to master our instrument and being interested in one or two genres, and perhaps more broadly. But what can evolve pretty quickly is our means of achieving this. So knowing how to practice over the span of, say, 100 days, which is about the working productive time of a semester in the U.S. universities, generally. And on a shorter basis, a weekly basis, a daily basis, this idea of having the long-term goals and then being really organized in your planning and finding that balance between consistency and variety, so that you're consistently addressing the same skills, but you're practicing different exercises, different ways to address these skills, helps you to keep engaged with what you're doing, so you don't kind of check out, and it doesn't become too rote, and yet you're still consistently developing the skills that you want to master.
So you're cross-training to get at specific skills you're looking for, and here's different ways you can go at getting to the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my main goal is that, say a freshman in college who starts working with this method with the help of their teacher, by the end of that semester, then you're like, man, I know how to do this. I know how to, whether they're working independently or with the teacher, how to set goals and how to design a plan to achieve them.
So there's an I think it would be easy to assume that 100 days of practice needs to be in a row. Is that true? And if not, like, what do you do how does that work?
Yeah, the one thing I try to make it clear, and this is, I think, it's true for all of us brass players, but I think trumpet players are maybe in the worst position, is that, we need light days, we need days off on occasion. Some people seem to be afraid to take a day off, especially trumpet players, because their chops are so notoriously volatile. But I think if you time it properly, it's a good thing to do. I started realizing this years ago when I was doing clinics. Every time I heard a kid who was playing well and seemed very serious, but had this kind of hard, tense quality to the chops, and I'd ask them, man, when was the last time you took a day off? And without exception, none of these people who played this way could remember the last time they'd had a day off. And so we need to think like athletes when it comes to the physical part of our playing. And if we look at what athletes do, they train hard, they're very disciplined, but they rest. And the rest is part of it. So what I suggest in the book is this idea of, once a week having a light day where you just kind of back off on the heavy routine, and every 2 to 3 weeks, depending what kind of a performance schedule you have, because obviously you don't want to put any kind of a performance or a serious rehearsal in jeopardy by leaving your chops in a bit of an unpredictable state. But depending on your schedule, finding a time where it'll work to take a day off and give you a couple days if you need it to feel like you're back to normal. And I used to have that, and I imagine it might have been the same for you, gents, almost kind of forced upon me by travel days. Of course, the travel has been all but gone for the past years. Things are starting to come back now. But so I had to think about that a little more carefully because I've been practicing pretty hard over the past year, but I didn't have the other sort of structural limits to practicing. I typically you finish a tour, you're a little beat up, and the next day you're on the plane for hours, and it's like, okay, this is a great day just to not touch the instrument, knowing I'd have a few days off when I got home and then could recover. And so that was something that I didn't have to think about as much because I would find my practice and my playing routine punctuated by those kind of days. Now I have to be a little more thoughtful and sort of gauge. It's like, okay, you get to that point that it's time to put it down, and or is it fine to continue? So it's I think it requires a good degree of self-awareness that often younger students are not super quick to develop unless they're really thoughtful about it.
I want to ask you about. I mean, there's an implied element of habit formation in this as well that I want to ask you about. But before we do that, I want to talk about the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, of which it is one. And so if you click on the link in the show notes, you'll be taken to a page where you can find out all the ways that you can participate in music and in the brass area at the Mary Papert School and find out who's on faculty. And it's a cool whiz-bang list of amazing teachers and some fantastic ensembles that you can get involved with. So please click on that link so that they know that you've been listening to this show. And very, 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 very special thanks to Jim, Nova, for making it possible. So
gotta thank the sponsors, man.
Right? No doubt. Well, and they've been with us the longest, actually. So very, very, very special thanks to what's his name.
By the way, did you like how when Rex was shocked that we were recording video, he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not subscribed to your YouTube channel. I didn't even know you had one." Yeah, thanks, Rex.
I kept looking for the audio podcast. It's like, where are they?
Oh, that's
still audio.
That's there too. So he's not listening
you
either.
You can have both.
Yeah,
you're not listening or watching.
I'm totally self-absorbed. I thought you guys knew that, but I guess.
How many of our T-shirts do you own?
How many of you sent me?
Oh, that's good. That's fair. That's fair.
Well, yep, Rex 1, Lance nothing on that
Yeah,
exchange.
That's true. Good point.
God, it's almost tied up. Almost tied up at this point.
Okay, so habit formation. So you don't anticipate or expect folks to do 100 days in a row, and there's good reasons for them not to, but the habit of practice, getting your rear end into the room with a horn in your hand or whatever it is that the task for the day is a really important thing. How do you address that, or how do you advise people who sort of fall off the wagon and they miss a couple of days and they're like, well, I should just throw it out because I was on day 14 and then I missed it because I got hurt or because we went on vacation, so forget it.
I can't wait to hear your answer because this is, I think, really important.
Yeah, they should just throw it out. No,
All right. Next question.
So you will never play the trumpet like me, and you will never be the vice mayor of Long Beach. You should just give up.
You should go sell real estate. Oh, wait. There's a Rex Richardson who does that too. So,
well, who knew that playing trumpet could get you into a real job like politics? You know, I mean, this is good news for all of us, right? No, no, you're right. Habit formation, of course, is crucial, I think, for any type of skill we want to master, you know. And I think all of us in some ways are creatures of habit, you know. One way to establish this is to have a daily start time for your practicing. You know, some people like to practice early in the morning. I'm more like maybe 8 or 9 is earliest for me. That'll work in terms of playing and feeling good about it.
PM.
You know, yeah, right. You know, I have had students who would prefer to start afternoon, which makes me go, but you know, hey, if it works for them, great. And at some point that may adjust, you know, as their schedules change. A lot of them are night owls, of course, but it's finding some consistent start time so you know, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever it is. I'm playing euphonium, I'm playing tuba or trumpet or whatever you're dealing with. And I think something else that's very important is, you know, figuring out how motivation works. Now, it's been a tough scene this past year and a half or so, right? I mean, with people unable to, lots of times people are motivated by the simple fact that they're preparing to perform, or they're preparing for, recording session, whatever the case might be. And all of our activities have been cut back substantially with the lockdowns. But what I started to do is it really became all about the practice room for me. So, and I would say my goals are all about achieving certain milestones. And this is where a practice journal becomes huge, where you can document what you're doing, you can make plans, you're doing this exercise, and you're like, I'm trying to get to this tempo, and, you know, today it was good, I can go a click faster. The next day, not quite good enough, we're going to keep it there. And with everything you're doing, having this sort of gauging of your progress, I think it's a great way to create motivation. Not to mention reminding yourself to always go back to your favorite sources. You know, I loved it when Houchin Hardenberger started recording these Charlie etudes, you know, because he was one of my first heroes when I was in my early mid-teens. And I could just watch a video and just be like, man, that's what I want to sound like, you know. And of course on YouTube we've got a million sources of inspiration that way. And so I can go to Freddie Hubbard and do the same thing, or Tina Ting Helseth, or whoever. I can go to all these different sources of motivation and get excited about music. If I'm having a day where it's like, just don't feel like doing it, but I gotta, you know, that's an instant source of some inspiration. And that's been the case that's always been the case for me. And so I think we also have to allow, you know, we're going to have those days where it's just kind of, everything's not clicking, maybe it's not working. You don't necessarily want to force yourself to try to be productive at that point. My way of dealing with it is I try to get in that mode and play, and if it's really not working, I'll put it down, I'll come back later. If it's still not working, I'm just going to say, okay, we'll come back tomorrow. So this depends on how crucial it is too. If you've got a recital in 3 days, okay, you got to make it work. You know, you've got to, and hopefully you're not going to be in that kind of a of a mindset anyway, if you've got a big performance coming up. But it's more likely to happen with what we've been dealing with in the past year, where a lot of us have been dealing with, not only lack of motivation, but really feeling down about what we've been doing and what the future might have to offer for us. But I kept trying to remind myself and anyone I spoke to, including especially our students at VCU, that, hey, this is temporary. We don't know what everything's going to look like on the other side, but there's going to be room for live performance. People are going to, they're not going to get too used to, I think, not dealing with live music because it's too special of an experience. People are not going to forget that. They're going to come back and, take the long view and make the practice room your motivation center for now. And in the long term, you're going to come up better. So the thing I kept telling myself is that when I come out of this and people are hearing me play again, I want them to say, man, I never heard him play like that, and for it to be a compliment. And so that's been kind of my mantra over the past year and a half in terms of approaching practice and goal setting.
I think my personal bias is that I think too many students have a too restrictive view of what practice means. And if the horn is not in their hands, then it doesn't count as practice. The transcription doesn't count. Rhythm doesn't count. If you're just playing a conga or a shaker just to try and work on your time, or you're not singing along with something like that doesn't count in some way. And that's I think a perfect thing to do on one of those days where it's just like it's not happening on your face. Go feed the beast. Go listen to amazing players and terrible players and realize what is it that's different between these two. There's like so much more growth and development that can happen that doesn't require having the metal pushed against your pile.
Yeah, totally. And singing. I mean, even I sing with this Cookie Monster voice, man. And it's like, it's so important for me to not only to make sure I'm processing pitches with absolute precision, but to clarify concept of phrasing. So when I'm alone in a practice room, I'll sing like I'm Pavarotti. I mean, I feel bad for anyone who can hear me. This is mostly my wife and the dogs, but it still helps me. So if I can do it, anyone can and should, I think. So if you got one of those days when the chops aren't really working, rely on singing. And if you're dealing with something you can't hear very well, then getting at a keyboard, finding the notes, being able to sing the phrases slowly, that's one of the most important first steps for being able to execute it well on a brass instrument. Because as we all know, man, we have to hear like professional singers. We have to hear like real singers. So other instrumentalists, I mean, in theory, a keyboardist or a piano player could be tone deaf and still play their instrument. Doesn't really tend to happen, but in theory, the mechanics would still work, Not for us. We have to hear. We can't rely on muscle memory. If it's not driven by the mental image of the sound, then not only are we going to play with less accuracy, but when we do hit the notes, they're not going to be as well centered. They're not going to have the beauty of tone, and we're just not going to have the best results. So that's something else that's a crucial skill we can develop if the chops aren't working. And, there are times when if we're not really engaged mentally, okay, cut yourself some slack, but you also have to, you've got to kind of put yourself in a situation where you are developing a habit, where you start to look forward and every day, man, hey, this is how I start my day. We're doing some practicing or whatever you start out with, that some time a day is set aside for you to start your practice routine and try to keep it sacrosanct. Try not to let things interrupt it other than, something crucial. But in terms of don't be too casual about it. Keep it in place every day. And I think that really is a big help.
So
you just said,
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, you just said something that I really wanted to hit on, which is you said that you sing like Pavarotti when you're in the practice room. And both of you tell me, have either one of you ever had a student play anything who, that was like fine, like trumpet, euphonium is being operated well, but like there really wasn't any real, anything there, who you then asked them to sing it and they then sang it and it was really interesting? Like never, right? It's always like they always sing it like they played it always. And I'm sure you guys do the same thing, which is that you get the singing more interesting. And sometimes, boy, does it take a lot of you got to like pull it out of them. Like it's unbelievable. Like, no, it's okay for you to jump from this side of the cliff to the other side of the cliff. You will live, I promise, you know? But then, did you always have the confidence to sing like Pavarotti when you were in the practice room? And if not, how did you develop it?
Well, I have a weird history with singing because obviously with this voice, no one wants to hear me sing these days. But when I was a kid, my
I mean, 100% of this call does, but sure, whatever, man.
Well, when I was a young kid, my first experiences with music were singing. I used to sing with the church and school choir, and it's kind of hard to imagine, but I must have been pretty decent because I did a lot of solo stuff in front of the choirs back then. And then, so when I got into, it was about 14, and really started to get serious about the trumpet. I think, and my teachers were suggesting I sing. I was a bit self-conscious about it because I knew my voice had gone in a southerly direction in a number of senses. I was sort of asked not to sing I was in the Honolulu Children's Chorus when we lived in Hawaii, and when I was 12, I could no longer sing the second alto parts that was the lowest part. Those in the group, and so yeah, that I was asked to leave.
Melaniki Mucker is the thing to say.
Yeah, and they could hear that coming through the texture of the entire choir. It's a terribly disruptive element musically.
Please tell me there's video of that, please. Please.
No, thankfully I'm so old that it was before everyone was videotaping everything. So what happened was, because this is a funny story, I the choir director, she had amazing ears, and I was very intimidated by her, and I'm in the back row trying not to be heard because I couldn't hit these notes, but she could still hear me. She's like looking around for what was that bad sound, and she's like, "You come down front." It's like, oh man. So she's like, "Sing these notes." So she's going lower and lower. I'm going, bah, 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 probably with that kind of a tone. And she's like, yeah, you're a baritone. That's not right at this age. Something's wrong. You done. And so I was effectively, I'm paraphrasing my own.
So she was a sweet lady. She was very nice and understanding.
She was nice when I could still sing, but then no. She had,
the show note says that time when Rex was shamed out of a children's choir.
That's right.
Yes.
He was 40.
Sir.
Sir?
Sir.
Yeah.
You're freaking everybody out. You're going to have to go.
I love this song.
Yeah, so after that, singing was no longer much of an outlet, as you can imagine. I think that's why I started to get more serious about the trumpet. But at a certain point, my teachers convinced me to start singing again, and I found that it was very helpful. And I use it all the time now, And you're right, I hear kids all the time. They'll sing something, and they're like, "Man, don't pretend you're just trying to get the pitches and there's no musicianship there at all. Sing like you are a singer, like it's your main instrument." And when they do that, they really commit. It really starts to clarify what it is they're trying to do on the instrument.
Yes.
And everybody's happier through that.
I've also, I guess I should put this in the positive way too, to try and be like a good teacher, which is that I've rarely ever heard a student sing something that was really interesting and committed to a musical opinion that then didn't also come out of the horn, right? It's not just that when they play it badly, they then sing it badly. When it's sung in an interesting manner, and the interesting manner can be out of tune because your voice isn't super trained, or because it's a big and us teachers, we can tell when it's just your voice or when you can't quite hear it. There's like a big difference there, but you just gotta sing with exclamation points, because those will come out the horn guaranteed if you can figure out how to sing that way.
Totally, absolutely.
So there.
So when's the book come out? How do people get it?
It should be out in August. And
August
we're going to try to,
2021.
I'm wrapping it up this month. We're at the point now where apparently the longest part of the process for BIM is doing the translations. So I'm trying to get all the text finished right now and then revise and get all that stuff done. And it's going to be, in at least 3 languages, maybe 4. They might do it in Japanese as well. And then
Cool.
And then it's just a matter of doing the music examples. Just the final details. So yeah, it should be out in August. And initially, we're looking at distributors in the U.S. because they've got relationships with, between sheetmusic.com and Hitz and some of these other places. So, it should be widely available. We're definitely going to try to get the word out and promote the release and what it's about and how it works, because we're obviously trying to inspire a lot of interest in it before it's actually released.
Well, let's stay there for one more hot second. So I buy the book, and then I know everything I need. Everything I need is in the book. Like, open the page and then bang, the first thing to do, or is it really supposed to be side by side with a teacher, or how's it work?
Well, if you're working without a teacher, you can still certainly benefit, I think, from what's in the book. It's I think the book is aimed at every bit as much at teachers as it is at students. So, but you've got a fair amount of instruction. What it doesn't have is, it's not necessarily going to be a book where that's all you take to the practice room, because I'm not going to try to reprint Charlier's and Arbin characteristic studies and some of these bigger things. Some of the smaller studies I'm getting permission to put in. We're going to have some Clark technical studies included, and a number that I've written that aren't going to be an issue, and of other things published by BIM. So that's an easy thing to sort out too. But it's the kind of thing where people are going to have materials that they use, and all this stuff can be switched out too. So if you're working on this particular etude book, you can, and there's one of the etudes I bring up, of course, is one of the most famous Charlier etudes, the second one. I gave some ideas about how to practice it, what to focus on, but you can substitute with something you're working on already and just apply the same ideas in terms of conquering the challenges. And in that sense, it's supposed to work with the materials you're already working with. It's supposed to help you structure your practice, your practice routine around them, as well as hopefully introducing you to some new exercises or to some method books that you may not have come across already.
I want to ask you about the world's opening back up, and so your travel schedule probably is opening back up as well. But I can't remember if I told you this, Rex, but Houchin Horns aims to spread the joy of music through providing the highest level of products, services, and resources to the brass playing community. Did I tell you that?
Rex and I were talking about that last night. Rex brought it up.
And I feel bad because I forgot to tell you that Houchin Horns is a premier brass pro shop with an impressive lineup of the best instruments, accessories, sheet music, and more.
He already knows.
He does?
Yeah. Well, he might not know the next part.
Oh,
everybody knows, but it still needs to be said.
Well, especially the part that Houchin Horns stocks the finest makes of brass instruments, including Adams, Bach, and Conn-Selmer, Eastman and Shires, Engelbert Schmidt, Paxman, Tyne, and Yamaha, among many others. Yeah, I think. What is that for Tyne? I didn't know you play Tyne.
Do they carry the Rex Richardson model Baroque trumpet?
That would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
But Tyne's probably more likely to make that than Yamaha. I don't think they're too big on the Baroque trumpet thing. But I did meet Mr. Tyne in Brazil, of all places, a few years ago.
Really?
And he was quite a nice gentleman.
Did he ask about us?
He raved about you guys for quite some time.
That reminds me that they do repairs and customizations in-house. And if you enter the promo code Junkies11 at online checkout, you'll receive $500 off the purchase of a new instrument from HouchinHorns.com.
And
I think I told you most of that, but.
And if Rex Richardson ever does put out a signature line of Baroque trumpets, you will also receive one of those free.
Ooh, that's true.
That's how confident you are. I'll never do it. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
So how's the calendar looking for you, Rex? Are you going to start getting on airplanes again?
Yeah, well, it's still a bit slow. I've got a thing in Texas next month that I'm looking forward to with our good friend Pat Sheridan. We're going to be doing the
Who's that?
Blast of Brass festival at Texas.
Oh, the
University
euphonium guy?
Commerce. Yeah, right. Some guy, big dude, weird glasses.
The dude with all the hair.
All the hair that's not there. And
the hair that's not there.
yeah,
It's deep. I love that Dr. Seuss book.
So you've got you do so much international stuff. I mean, like we talked about this on your first appearance, but like no joke, like Rex has recorded albums in countries that I've only ever even read the name once. I mean, like he like, which is commentary on me, not on those countries. But I mean, like, it's how many countries have you performed in?
I think around 45.
Yeah, and
six continents. No Antarctica yet, sad to say. Someday. Penguins. I want to play for Penguins, man.
Come to Pittsburgh.
Those are not real penguins.
No, I mean at the National Aviary.
Okay.
So it would make sense that your schedule would kind of come back to normal a little slower because we're getting back to normal, but so much of the world is not. It's heartbreaking. Like so much of the world is so behind us.
Yeah, it's disturbing and confusing for a number of reasons, but I'm supposed to go to Japan in November, and so I'm hoping everything will be
cool.
Green lights for that in terms of the travel, and concert halls are open and functioning normally because I think they're having a bit of a rough time right now.
Right.
And I'm supposed to go right after that to Nebraska, big contrast. But that'll be both places. I think will be a blast. And it's funny. I got Dana Wilson wrote a new a jazz trumpet concerto for me, jazz trumpet and wind ensemble.
Cool.
Man, it must have been 2 years ago, maybe almost that he finished it, or at least a year and a half, and it still hasn't been premiered because of the unfortunate timing with all the lockdowns. We were supposed to do last year in April the world premiere at VCU with the wind ensemble, and then 10 days after that, the Asian premiere in Tokyo with the Symphonic Winds Tokyo. With Yoshiaki Ito conducting, and of course all that got canceled. So we're doing. Oh, actually no, it was with the Tokyo Wind Symphony Orchestra.
Wow!
And so that's been rescheduled for November. We're also very lucky that Peter Graham has written a new concerto for me, and we're supposed to premiere both of those concertos in November. So I'm hoping it happens, or all that's going to have to be rescheduled. We have these beautiful pieces that are not getting put out there yet because of the circumstances. But that's the next international thing. After that, I'm not really sure. I haven't been working as much on booking international events because I think I'm getting the sense that people are not super excited about doing that right now. They're not. Even in Yamaha, Japan, when I mentioned I had this concert, because the April trip last year was going to be great. I was going to Seoul, working with Yamaha Korea, doing a couple events, and then in Tokyo I was going to be playing with this Yamaha big band, doing a concert, and then a couple days later the concert with the Symphonic Winds Tokyo. And Yamaha is still leery about booking any international artists given what's been going on. So I've kind of been holding off on pursuing that stuff until I feel like people might be more comfortable with hosting folks from the U.S. And in the meantime, following up with other leads that things, a lot of things that were canceled have been rescheduled, starting with next January. So next January is looking like it's going to be a little bit more normal in terms of domestic travel. There's a chance I need to figure this out if this is happening. There could be something happening in England and Germany. In England in December. No, January. Sorry. But I have to.
England in Germany.
England in Germany.
Is that kind of like the Vatican that's in Italy but not? It's like
I somehow managed to confuse the word Germany in January. That's really. I don't want to say anything more about that.
You're sleep deprived from all the gigs you've been playing.
Yeah, right.
You're jet lagged from driving up 95.
The lack of gigs has left me with unable to sleep really. But no, but I'm starting to do more stuff. One thing I've missed over the past decade or so is I've kind of become disconnected from the Richmond scene, especially with the jazz musicians and getting to work. I used to enjoy getting to sub with the Richmond Symphony on occasion. I was supposed to do another concerto with them in February, premiere another one. And that's been rescheduled for April of next year. A good friend of mine, Trey Pollard, who's a wonderful jazz guitarist and also an incredible orchestrator, is doing a new concerto for full symphony orchestra and trumpet. We're going to premiere that in April of 2022. But also just connecting with the jazz scene. I just got a call from someone who's hosts a jam session a couple of Sundays a month and asked me to come in and be the sort of featured for that and help host it. And on
Cool.
the 27th of June, I was so happy, just starting to reconnect
That's
locally,
awesome.
because there's so many great musicians there that I want to start to get to collaborate with again.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I have a question about,
Yeah.
you get all this stuff written for you, and I'm sure that part of that is just when people write things for you, then more people write things for you, and there's probably momentum there. How did you start? Like, what was the first piece of music that was written for you, if you can remember specifically? There's been a lot of them by a composer, and how did you make that initial contact with them, and how was the whole thing structured?
I'm not sure if I can remember the very first piece. I do think when I started more frequently collaborating with composers was when I was doing grad school at LSU, so starting in the late 90s. And I was recording this album that featured another couple Dana Wilson pieces. One of them was Masks, that awesome piece he wrote, which is basically a three-movement sonata for trumpet and piano, and that was a title track, so that album's called Masks. And there are several really fine composers at LSU. Some of them were my student colleagues, and one of them was my teacher, my composition professor. So he actually, my composition teacher, had a piece they hadn't had recorded yet that would work great for trumpet and computer. So I did that, and I asked a couple of the other folks to write stuff, or if they had stuff that they'd already written. None of it had been recorded before. And that sort of started that trajectory of really looking for chances to collaborate with composers. And yeah, I think it starts with, all the composers obviously want to get their music out there. And some of them are in different situations. I'm always trying to see if I can get some money for anyone who's writing anything, because I think while some folks are willing to just write for free, I think that's something that should be avoided if at all possible.
Sure.
We want people to get paid for their work.
If we want them to write more stuff than we do.
Yeah. And when you think there are some folks who aren't dependent on the writing for their income, then there's someone like Jim Stevenson who is amazingly, supporting the family and putting kids through college, entirely with, what he makes from rentals and commissions and sales of sheet music. And it's like, we want to make sure people like Jim are able to continue to make a living, and that's why I think you always try to keep this, pay for work happening if at all possible,
Yeah, good stuff. Lance, is there anything else we need to get to with this young man before we hit the bonus episode?
No.
This is just a trial run. Actually, there were some technical difficulties, so we're gonna have to do this again, Rex. So it'll be fine.
But we'll
Feels
do
like
it with
old
video
times,
next
man.
time.
Yeah, well,
Great. I can shave and, put on some makeup and do all the right stuff.
I feel badly. This is kind of like, oh, you guys should have been there. But the highlight of this so far was before we hit record was his face when he went, oh, you cats to do a video now? Like, yeah, he got real.
He just started messing with his hair.
Got real focused.
Like-
He was talking about whitening his teeth. Like he was, it got.
Put on a shirt. Thank you, by the way.
This is my best shirt, by the way. You guys should feel honored. I mean,
So- Speak.
What happened to the other one?
well,
Pull up.
I have a story to tell in the bonus episode about a Zoom lesson, which is very funny. If you would like to hear Rex Richardson, international man of trumpet mystery, in the bonus episode, as well as a slew of bonus episodes from Mark Gould. I almost said Glenn Gould. That would be a coup if we had Glenn Gould in a bonus episode. Yep,
he didn't talk much, but he was good to have on.
I interviewed Glenn when I was 7, so we had an instant rapport. We were like, this was right after the second, the 81 Goldberg variations came out, so we talked about that versus the 55. No, that didn't happen. So many trumpet players, Michael Sachs. There's a lot of people that you can hear bonus episodes with if you become a Patreon patron and support the show. And so head to patreon.com/The Brass Junkies to learn more about that. And we're going to have Rex hang out here to enjoy in some bonus action. So, Lance, I want to thank you. Really, I mean, Rex was fine, but I thought that you did a stellar job of interviewing. I mean, you ask the questions that need to be asked. You let up when you need to let up. It's really a model for all of us. Wouldn't you agree, Rex?
I agree. You win.
Yeah.
Lance, you won this.
I brought my B- game. I was ready to
Your
deliver.
B- is like my A++, man. I mean, I'm inspired.
That's the jet lag talking. All right. Hang out for the bonus episode, Rex. And thank you, everyone, for checking out this episode of The Brass Junkies.
There you go.
Just like that.
He's a good man.
I miss hanging out with him.
Yeah, me too. Yep, me too.
There's some good times with that gentleman.
I love his approach to practicing. He's very organized. We get into this in his Inside the Practice Room session as well. But as you just heard, he's really organized, but he also approaches it from like a musical and artistic way, which I think is really important to do both of them at once.
I didn't think of it until just now, but it's just like his career. It's an interesting balance of hard work and improvisation. Like there's a plan and there's an approach and there's a system and a methodology, and then there's also room to be creative and to experiment with that. I need a nap after that.
Look at you. That was the one good. It's 8:32 p.m. right now. Yeah, I would.
2 minutes past my bedtime.
You're. He's usually good for one profound idea a day. Usually
that was it.
Usually they happen at night when he's asleep and doesn't even notice it himself. But we were all here for that. That's good. You're right,
Yeah,
and that's what great practicing is. That's exactly it. Is like, and it depends on your level of structure. That's why I've loved doing all of those Inside the Practice Room sessions, and there's a ton of them planned for the fall. Just hearing, there's so much commonality, and yet like the actual execution looks a lot different depending on the person. But yeah, you nailed it. There's structure and there's like a plan, but then there's complete improv in front of it. It's like teaching, right? Where you come with a plan, but you're teaching the student in front of you for that week, the human in front of you, the musician in front of you, all of that. So
That always drove me crazy. I got a degree in music education, and I had to take general education classes as part of my undergrad. So it was the same class if you were teaching math or music or gym or whatever it was. And the supervising teacher demanded that I have a in-depth, minute-by-minute lesson plan for each class period. And I tried to explain to her that I could tell her that I wanted to work on this piece, this section. I could show her what parts, and she didn't read music. And I tried to explain it to her. My supervising teacher tried to explain it to her. And she just kept nodding and saying, okay, but we really need. And so just was like eyes on the prize. And then the other most important thing to her was that I design and install a bulletin board during my student teaching. So that happened.
if you're listening and not watching this on YouTube, I just gave a very sarcastic double thumbs up. Yep. I'm sorry. It says here we need a bulletin board. Yep. We need a
bulletin board. It didn't say that you were going to tune those clarinet players or whatever those are at 8:14. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, this is why when you need a problem solved by some large company, that's why you have to say something to the effect of like, can you solve this problem for me, or are you empowered to solve this problem for me? You even take it off of them, or and if not, can you connect me with someone who does? Yeah, because I understand that you're not given that power. Yep. So when their only job is to keep you on the phone for another like 20 minutes, so that the attrition rate, so that you just give up and say screw you, and then probably don't even switch companies. So
Right. Yeah.
I could be talking about literally any telecom company right now at all. Like somebody's like, they're like, oh, that's T-Mobile. And somebody else is like, oh, that's totally Verizon. Oh, he's talking about AT&T. It's like, yeah, I'm talking about all of them. Yes. My favorite used to be when I would ask people, when they would say that they were flying somewhere, I'd go, oh, which airline are you flying? And then as they took a breath, I'd be like, oh, they suck. And then just cut them off. So we just talked about practicing with Rex, which was great. I also wanted to plug the bonus episode because it was good. His mother makes a very unintentional cameo, which was priceless, and
she talks just like him. I didn't expect that.
Rex, are you coming to dinner? How much longer are you going to be on this call? He's like, Mom, get out of here. I'm doing a podcast. So I thought you would be done by now. Mom, get out of my room.
The best part was that he was at their house and he was set up right in the middle of their living room, and he just didn't expect them to come home.
Oh, I also like there were pictures of his sister all over the room and no pictures of him.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, I wonder at what age he figured out they just didn't really love him as much as the rest of them. But so he got into a lot of rhythm and brass in the
Some really funny stories,
the bonus episode. Yep, and about just how special the run has been for him with that group. So you can head to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to get access to that and bonus episodes with people like Jim Pandolfi and Mark Gould and Tom Houchin and Chris Martin, and the list goes on and on and on. So yep, definitely check it out. I think that's it, Lance. Is there anything else that we need to tell all of these people?
Happy birthday, Andrew.
Oh, thank you. It is still
Healthy
my
Hits.
birthday. Yes,
Yeah.
healthyhits.com. There we go. All right. Thank you to all of you for listening. And that is going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.